I actually don't know where that even came from.
So actually, it's remind me a lot of Unit 731. Did you guys ever hear about that?
Unit 731?
731.
Kaz, how much do you know about this Unit 731?
I've done some reading on it. It's actually one of the more disturbing things I think that we've talked about on this. It was a group of basically it was a prison camp in China at the control of the Japanese, under the control of the Japanese government at the time. And it was after the Manchurian incident. They took over a little piece of China and set up sort of a puppet state. And they had this area of China where they were basically at war with the country, and they had an outpost.
Are you talking about the past or the future? Because I'm pretty sure you're talking about the future.
This is the past. Hopefully it's not repeated. But so they had this area that was basically sort of remote enough that it wasn't going to spark a lot of controversy or a lot of focus. And the history of this unit actually starts earlier in around early 1900s, 1920s-ish. There was a Japanese whiz kid by the name of Shiro Ishii. He was just basically a really smart medical student and studied bacteriology, serology, preventative medicine, and pathology. And he was just a sort of honor student. He met a bunch of people in the military. He got to go. He developed a water filtration system that helped soldiers get over their sicknesses.
But he's a doctor.
He's a doctor.
I know not one of those words you just said.
We'll go back to the dictionary in the library after this, and we'll teach you how to read.
And then we'll burn it.
And then we'll burn the dictionary. So Ishii got a chance to sort of further his medical knowledge, and he actually ended up traveling Europe, going to Russia and Germany and other places to study different pathogens and ways to sort of get around them or to block them. He just so happened to, in his higher level studies, meet a lot of higher level military members of the Japanese government. So what became the Secretary of Medicine and sort of the Attorney Generals and these like higher ups in the government were sort of his initial cohorts as he was coming up.
Oh,
cronies.
So after he traveled, he came back.
Sycophants.
So one of these men was named Colonel Chikahiko Koizumi.
Badass name.
We brutally just destroy some names of other cultures on this show.
Chikahiko.
We do not.
Chikahiko.
We never claim to speak Japanese.
Never.
We try. We try our best.
Konnichiwa.
Colonel Chikahiko Koizumi, who ended up becoming one of the higher ups in the military, was a surgeon, also was medically trained, and because he was in the military, but he was a medical professional, a surgeon, there was sort of a stigma, I guess, or he was experiencing some derision from some of his coworkers in that he wasn't directly participating in the war effort because he was just, a doctor. And he wasn't actually killing things or coming up with strategies or anything.
Yeah, he's got soft
Right.
hands. Yeah.
Look at you helping people. Go out and kill.
Right. So he apparently this affected him, and he got together with Ishii, they developed this branch of the military that was going to participate in experimental biological weaponry.
So they were trying to develop biological weapons, or like to try and like.
Well, so it was a little bit of
quote unquote biological weapons. They're trying to make.
If you can imagine, just like your wildest mad scientist scenario, it was this. They were attempting to find the limits of the human body.
So they tried to
through any means.
Like,
and we'll get into the specifics.
Melt like a goat to a Miller Lite bottle to a man's back. That's my wildest military fantasy.
Let him finish.
That's pretty close, actually.
God, let him finish. He's the one telling the story. So was it like an Unchained fantasy where suddenly a crane lifts you up above L.A. and there's like dancers and syncopated swimming?
No, not that at all. Actually, it had a really innocuous name. It was the Epidemic Prevention and Water Supply Unit of the Kwatong Army.
That's not suspicious at all.
Yeah, that sounds very responsible.
It was its official title.
Yeah, they never call it Kill Unit 28. It's always like Happy Time Farm.
What is it?
Exactly. Epidemic Prevention and Water Supply Unit of the Kwatong Army.
We do good things.
That's their byline.
Their tagline, exactly.
Their tagline.
Helping people die.
It sounds great, everybody, and on paperwork, everybody was like, yeah, of course, like let's prevent epidemics and supply water to people. It sounds like a great thing. But in actuality, this was about a 3 square kilometer death camp that existed in China over the course of the 4 years it operated.
4 years too many.
It was closer to 250,000 people that were killed. So pretty significant loss of life and just horror going on there.
Oh my goodness.
70% of them were Chinese natives. There were a good deal of POWs. There were a good deal of... Actually, one of the more disturbing stories I read was that they tricked people into coming with like employment. They would like put out,
they
would put out flyers in the towns for like jobs for like peasants and farm people. And when they showed up, they were dragged into this horrifying experimental death camp.
There is totally a town in Europe right now. The mayor is trying to give people £2,000 to move to the town because everyone has been moving away in search of better jobs, and they're trying to raise family and like things like that. That's such a good idea for a horror story. It's like, hey, this town is gonna, this town in Portland is gonna give me $2,000.
That's actually really good. I like that.
And then you disappear.
I'm gonna steal that.
Doesn't Alaska pay to live there?
Well, it's the same thing. You just die when you go up there anyway, right? Like, there's no
boredom.
Guys, coming back from Alaska.
Yeah, it's dark and cold.
And there's bears.
I hear it's actually really beautiful.
Son of a bitch.
The bears are gorgeous, majestic,
almost hot.
Sexy.
Probably after a while.
Bears.
Giant, sexy Kodiak bear.
Thick ass Kodiak bear. Just
it's bear country.
Just waddling around. So Ishii officially took control of the unit in 1937, and around that time is when the reports of what was going on in there started to come out. And it is, again, to sort of put a disclaimer on it, some of the most disturbing stuff that I've read, like hands down. Even, people trying to gross you out with their stories.
Strap in, kids.
Some of the more specific points were, as Nick pointed out, there were vivisection was a common thing. They were cutting people up without anesthesia. They were cutting them up after they were dead, while they were dead. Men, women, children, infants, pregnant women. There were there were
the full menu.
Correct, exactly. Yeah, pretty much all people.
If you were people, we're cutting you into you. Cutting in.
Weird stuff like they were trying to study the effects of amputation and blood loss, so they were cutting limbs off and attaching them.
It's pain and death.
You should just like save them a lot of time and money, basically, to show up and go, hey, all this stuff. It's gonna, yeah, exactly. All this will work to kill them. Like, you don't need to do all this. And pick one of all of these.
Were they trying to get data? And this clipboard certainly suggests that. Were they trying to get data as far as like how much blood, like how much, like the volume of blood?
Well, it was just things like how long it takes people to die. It was basically trying to find out how to kill.
But I mean, like any of that could be variables. If you're dehydrated, you're not going to bleed a lot.
Right. So they were This was you would fit in the staff there.
Are you talking from experience?
Another test case. Yeah,
well, I've seen a movie one time with my peepers.
That first 10 minutes of Up, I think, is the funniest thing I've ever seen in the theater.
So you've seen it?
Hilarious first 10 minutes.
James Franco. I love
James Franco and Up. Yeah,
is there a vivisection in the first 10 minutes of Up?
Yeah, James Franco cuts up that old lady. They would cut off their limbs and attach them like sort of like Mr. Potato Head style on the other.
Yeah. Jesus.
They found basically someone said that they were walking through and it looked like hell. Like there were little portholes into these cells where just the most disturbing people talking about people sitting there sweating with bones poking out of their skin from necrosis. They were very heavily into studying virology and bacteriology and things that having to do with disease spreading through fleas, through consumption of contaminated water. So a lot of these situations, they would just have bugs bite someone and stick them in a cell and monitor them over, however long it took them to rot, basically, from these diseases.
That is terrible.
And obviously, it's the limits of human depravity. There was just awful, horrible things going on there. People had their stomachs removed while they were alive.
What? Whoa.
That couldn't be good.
So they just connected the esophagus to the knee bone?
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, yeah, your guess is as good as mine.
I'm pretty sure they would probably go a little different than the knee bone. There's another port they could have gone towards.
The hip bone.
Thank you.
The esophagus goes directly into the duodenum, and then it's like...
Duodenum, good word.
Imagine if they did esophagus to urethra. Oh, God. And now you have to eat the spicy chili.
So, again, just lethal doses of X-rays, extreme high and low temperatures, exposure, things like that. And it was basically just to have this weird sort of lab where they were trying to find out what unique ways they could kill people
or
and
what
deliver
exactly
pathogens.
kills people, and so
or how far people can go.
Yeah,
right. The data on the sort of spread of disease, or the that was one half of it, and then the other half being sort of the limits of physical.
And this was
torture.
all 100% approved by the Chinese government.
It was the Japanese.
I'm sorry, the Japanese government.
This is in Manchuria, correct?
Correct. They invaded, took over a small piece, and then performed these experiments there because apparently they had a ready access to their desired test subjects. One of the more disturbing things that I remember reading was that they commonly referred to the prisoners in the camp as the logs. And it would be numbered logs, like log number or whatever is coming in from this experiment. And
had to dehumanize. Dehumanize.
Right.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
That was somebody who actually came in later, closer to the end of it, talked about how they were just shocked at how like flippant everyone was being with this sort of horrifying circumstances. And from their perspective, they were at war. Like he said that the staff kind of said that they were at war. They felt like, rather than just these people were going to die anyway, rather than just them dying, now we get some information and we get to like maybe prevent something for in the future.
How kind of them.
I think that actually
thanks guys.
Yeah. Didn't they used to tell like each other like little in jokes or ask questions like how many logs fell down today?
Oh yeah. That was one of the sort of
sick bastards.
Yeah. Again, like
humans, aren't we awesome?
But I heard they also used to refer to them as that because of how they would burn when they would get rid of the bodies.
Right. There was a large building on the property that was sort of unidentified for a while from aerial photography that they had done, but they found out that it was like a large incinerator that they were using to sort of dispose of the thousands upon thousands of corpses that they were producing at this fucking hellhole.
What I find disturbing is that they went pure scientists and they had to discover a baseline. Like, okay, rip that guy's heart out and see if he dies.
Right. It definitely
Son of a bitch, he did. Okay, put that down. All right, rip that guy's liver out. Wait, still alive? Oh, he did. Okay, that's number 2. I mean, they knew the baseline. They could have just gone from there.
Right. It definitely like not only sort of a Flintstonian in its like execution of the right, but also kind of just sick. Like they had horse urine injected into someone's kidneys to see what would happen. Like how long
would that ever happen in nature?
Just in case.
It was. It was.
They're just fucking around at this point, man.
Like these guys are just at lunch and they just have these like fleeting thoughts and they're just like, yeah, let's try it.
Yeah. Well, what would happen if we shove some horse urine in that guy's kidney? Let's do it.
The guy picks up this like ketchup packet as the other guy picks up a like mustard and he goes, "You thinking what I'm thinking?"
Exactly.
It's like they would play ad libs to figure out what they were going to do that day.
Right.
Then he put his blank inside his blank using a blanker.
In about 1949 is when they were supposed to be charged for the war crimes. When the investigation happened, people found out about this and who was involved. The American government pardoned them for the data.
Project Paperclip.
They Project Paperclipped him. Basically, everyone
that
got
little
off.
Guy that pops up when I'm trying to write a document.
Yeah,
that's
he's a
Clippy.
Nazi. No, he's a Nazi.
Also, your computer needs to be updated.
Yeah, if you still see Clippy, there's a problem.
Wow, so this thing was just completely kind of just bought out and then
they basically
swept under the rug.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Did you hear about it in like high school
No,
or two
never.
stories?
No.
Yeah, it was. They allowed them to basically get immunity for that horrifying data.
Do you know if the Japanese government has ever acknowledged this?
They have. They're obviously as much as any other government does is like, yeah, we did it. Like, yeah.
Oops.
Sorry.
My bad.
Sorry, guys.
What were we thinking? I mean, seriously.
Seriously, though, what else can you do? I mean, 250,000 people lost their lives. There's nothing.
There's no way you can repair that wound.
They didn't just lose them. They were like
nothing's gonna cut it.
horrifically yanked from them. Like a loss of life is like, oh, like I had a heart attack or something. Like this is like they were intentionally given like probably told like, hey, this is what we're going to give you. This is what's going to happen to you, and then stuck in a cell and waited.
Do you
die.
think they did? I mean, because that would be like
even
psychological.
even worse.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, not to get into this, more sort of gory specifics, but these doctors, these doctors were extremely abusive to the prisoners. They treated them like meat. There was no compassion or any of that stuff.
Oh, what's that?